Rebecca, I'm going to hit you with a question right off the bat.
All right.
How many miles do you think you can walk in a day, and how many days in a row could you do that?
All right. I think I could probably walk like 6 or 7 miles. Well, in one day by itself, I could probably walk 12. But if I had to do it on repeat, I would say like 6 or 7 miles a day. I did
Okay.
do that breast cancer 3 day once. When I did that, you have to walk 20 days for 3 days straight. First day I did 20. The second day I bailed at mile 12. I'm like, take me to get some food and get these shoes off my feet. And then I did another 20 on the third day.
So what were your feet like after just those 3 days?
They were a mess. At every stop, they had like medics looking at everybody's feet. They looked like hamburger meat. It was really bad.
Okay, so can you imagine? Could you imagine doing 500 miles in 35 days?
I absolutely cannot. But
Oh,
you know
really?
who can is the guest we have on our podcast today. It's from a movie called I'll Push You. It's on Amazon and you can find it on their website. Their names are Patrick Gray and Justin Skizik. They are incredible. Their story is amazing. They hike the Camino de Santiago in 35 days, 500 miles. And he's in a wheelchair.
Yep.
So Patrick pushes him, and the story is incredible. It's amazing. It's so inspiring. You were going to love this interview just like we did. Thank you guys for taking time to join us today. We're so excited to talk to you guys about your story and completely inspired by the both of you. But tell us, let's go back a little bit. How did y'all meet?
How did we meet?
Well, yeah, I mean, you want to take this, Pat?
Sure. Yeah. We didn't really meet. It's just always been.
It's
It's just always been there.
Yeah. I mean, we just celebrated our 49th birthdays. Justin was born on the 12th of July. I was born on the 14th, and we're born right about 36 hours apart. So same hospital in the same little town. So there's never really been we don't have memories where we're not a part of them. So
Wow. Yeah.
he's always been there, in some regard, whether it's, the distant memories of playing with Legos and you got that parallel play kind of going on. And you're kind of aware of somebody over here, there's that kind of vague memories like that. And then anything significant after that, he's either been around or been involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like the cat that keeps coming back. He can't get rid of me.
I think the cat has to leave before it can come back.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Never left. Maybe you need to be a better deterrent. I don't know, Patrick.
So.
What are you doing that keeps him hanging around? You must be a pretty decent person, I guess.
Well, try to be, but
We like to have fun.
My ups and downs.
Yeah. Well, we all do. That's what we all do. We just don't all put them in a movie for everybody to see our ups and downs.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So, Justin, you have a rare neuromuscular disease. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the disease I have that I've been diagnosed with is called multifocal acquired motor axonopathy. I call it MAMA for short, MAMA. It's very, very rare. It's autoimmune driven, and it kind of attacks my nervous system, and then my nervous system shuts down, meaning my motor nerves. So I can feel everything from head to toe. It's just my muscles don't work the way that they should. So it's very similar to ALS, so like Lou Gehrig's disease. Lou Gehrig's is not a good one. It's very aggressive, and usually the lifespan is only a few years. Some people live a little longer, but in my case, there's only a handful of people in the United States that have the disease that I have. So that's the one that's kind of sticking around. It's been that way for quite some time, and I live life, in a wheelchair, in a power wheelchair. So. But I'm dependent upon others to get me up every day, and feeding and bathroom and showering and all the fun stuff that comes along with just daily living. My wife is my primary caregiver, and then Pat has stepped into that role as well over the years. Probably the most person that has been in that most inner circle. But yeah, that's the life that I live, and it's challenging, but also is very eye-opening at the same time.
How old were you when you were diagnosed with that?
Well, I first started showing symptoms when I was about 16 years old. It was triggered by a car accident I was in, and a friend of mine was driving, not Pat, but a different friend, and I just started noticing kind of weakness in my left foot. I was playing soccer and it just didn't quite work the way that it should. And then and then it I was finally diagnosed, I think around 2021 of age, not the year.
Yeah.
And it's a process of elimination. And so, you know, neuromuscular diseases are very difficult to identify unless they're very clear. But in my case, it wasn't. So
Mhm.
it was a lot of just trial and error. Nope, that doesn't fit. Yes, that sticks. No, that doesn't stick. So
Yes.
kind of like that. That's how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Patrick, when you find out like your best friend has this condition, how did that hit you when you found out?
It was a it wasn't like just a switch was flipped. I mean, there was
Yeah.
just this progression. So I would say, I mean, when Justin was first exhibiting symptoms, at age 16, we have this foot drop that kind of comes into play, and he's using orthotic to help him walk, and he's still able to run somewhat and play tennis. He's staying active, and so when you kind of walk with someone through this kind of slow trajectory to a new space in life, it just evolved. And so I tried to evolve with him for a very long time. So it didn't really affect me that much initially, to be honest with you, because it just it just happened. And all right, well, this sucks. Let's go. What's next? Well,
Yeah.
all right, now your other foot's being affected. That kind of sucks, but what are we going to do about it? And Justin's positivity and his way, he just worked with it, even though it's not an easy thing to deal with. He just kind of rolled with the punches, if you will. And
Mhm.
so being someone who's kind of on the outside of that, I mean, I'm in the inner circle, we're tight friends, but I'm not the one dealing with it. So I'm still on the periphery to a certain degree. When you see someone handle it so well, you tend to handle it well as well, in addition to whatever's going on. And so those first, gosh, 8-10 years, it just was, it sounds silly, but it was no big deal. And when Justin lost the use of his legs, now he's in a manual chair, but still he's got his hands. He can still work as a graphic designer. He can still hold his kids. He can still hold his wife's hand. You still just, you watch how someone deals with it, and you kind of do that in turn, right? So that whole time period, even though there was a diagnosis that wasn't a great one, on the table, it didn't really affect me that much. But in 2010, when the disease progressed pretty aggressively, it was, his legs were very slow development, as far as losing the function there. But upper body was what, Justin, 40 days?
Yeah, it was quick.
He has about
Yeah.
40 days. He lost 60-70% of his upper body. I mean, his hands, his shoulders, his core, everything was just gone. That's when it got really difficult.
Mhm.
Because Justin is a guy he's just so positive all the time. He is always finding the silver lining to every cloud, and sometimes it gets borderline obnoxious. It's like, seriously.
You're
But he
welcome.
just has that, yeah. But he just has that aura around him of just, you know what? I'm going to find a way to make this something good, even though it looks really bad.
Mhm.
But when he got that diagnosis, that person, the half glass full kind of guy, he was absent for a while. He was scared. I mean, why wouldn't you be, right? Because how he puts food on the table is suddenly gone. His ability to hold his kids is gone. Like, it changes everything. And talking with individuals who have dealt with that kind of progression, typically it's faster. The upper body is always harder, right? There's certain types of intimacy that go along with that suddenly you are not a contributor to. It's hard. You can't hug somebody. You can receive a hug, you can't hug them back.
Mhm.
And that got really, really hard and dark, to be honest with you, because I was just pissed. I was angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at the world. I was angry at the situation, because this is not how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
And so that was 2010. And to be honest, I just became very bitter for a solid 2 years.
Hmm. Yeah. So you guys are both believers, I think. How do you reconcile that? Like, how do you reconcile that with God? Both of you. I know it's hard.
For me, it's a gradual process. So it goes with um, you get angry, you get pissed, you get like, like, come on, like, um, and then what's hard is that you have people around you, saying things like, this is going to open Pandora's box, I think, a bit, but I was saying people saying, well, you're not praying hard enough,
Oof.
or or they'll see you and be like, can I pray for healing for you and this and that. Um, but and at first I was just like, yeah, okay. Um, but as I'm wrestling over the years, and it's a continual wrestle. So it's not like, over the course of like a week, I just like figured it out. Yay, great. Um, and I mean, even just like earlier this summer, I was like, Pat and he was helping me pee. We're on our Camino, and he's like, I said, hey, can I have a pity party real quick? And I was like, I hate this. This sucks. Like, and he's like, yeah, it does. I don't know. And I was like, all right, I'm done. But um, having wrestling with God, wrestling with spirituality and whatever that looks like for people. But for me, it's like, it ebbs and flows. I have moments of frustration. I have moments of okay, this is why I'm dealing with this.
Yeah.
And I've never, you hear people say when they're going through tough times, why is God doing this to me? Like they're blaming God, like he's up there just like, yeah, I'm gonna make your life just hell on earth just because, like some sort of whatever, like, my just just to mess with you.
Yeah.
But I looked at it as, well, what are the lessons that I can learn from this?
Hmm.
And realizing quickly I can't do it on my own. Um, and is there frustration with that? Yes. Is there moments of absolute peace? Yes. Everything in between. And it's just this up and down journey of, okay, well, if these are the cards that are being, dealt in my life, then what do I do with it? How can I best navigate it?
Hmm.
And um and I've taken a stance probably over the last 10 years ish of just being focusing entirely on being grateful. So that has helped me navigate. That's kind of been my steady line of just being grateful, even when God is silent,
Hmm.
even when you're going through tough times and you don't feel like anything is there. And I've been through that the last few years, just quiet. God's been quiet, but I've seen that show up over time, in little moments, big moments.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's a continual wrestling. And I'd probably say, I might speak for Pat a little bit here. I think it's okay to be angry. Like it's okay to like yell at God and be like, what the hell? Like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
give me something here. And there's been times where I've said that, like, you gotta give me something here because
Hmm.
this sucks. Like it really does.
Hmm.
And and slowly but surely you kind of start seeing the unraveling of like piece by piece, just like, okay, all right, I'm on the right course. I'm on the
Hmm.
right course.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if I'm making any sense through this because it's a very loaded question what you
Yeah.
asked.
I know.
Um,
I threw it
but
at you.
Well, I
but
think
that's how I see it, at least.
Yeah.
and I think what's cool about that is to, like you're saying, be okay knowing you're going to have down moments and you're going to be angry about things, but no, but not staying there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what a lot of people have a tough time with. You get down and depressed and all that, and it's hard to get back out of that.
Mm-hmm.
It
So it's,
is.
I think, just the awareness that, yeah, I'm going to have these moments, but they're not going to be my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
I think that's just that's a healthy way to handle anything in life, really.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all hit with speed bumps in our life. Some, some are a lot bigger hills than we probably want to climb. And some are smaller on the smaller front. But I can tell you that where the magic really, like where one of the key things that has helped me throughout all of it has been people around me, community. So while Pat and I have this long-term friendship, it's not the Justin and Patrick show, right? It's way more than, I mean, there's a whole community around Patrick. There's a whole community around me. There's, around my wife, I mean, it's while a disease, living with a progressive disease is going through a challenge of any kind really is a ripple effect. It affects everyone around you. And the way to really navigate it is through having community, people around you and supporting you, loving you, and you know, sometimes they're close and sometimes they're afar.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel that. And that's, I think that's one of the true testaments of my life has just been people coming around and loving me and supporting me when I need it and listening to me when I'm like, hey, I want to have a pity party real quick. Pat's like, all right, like just listening, not
yeah.
saying a whole lot. He's like, yep, it does. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm done. All right, let's go. Um, it's just knowing that I can go to Pat, I can go to my wife, I can go to our friends. Like we have a close circle of friends that we can go to.
Yeah.
Anyway,
The safe
Pat, do you
space.
have anything to add on that front? Like how you deal with it?
Well, yeah, I mean, my perspective is, a lot different, just, not being the one who's on the receiving end of things, at least in a physical form. But, I was raised with a lot of influences in my life where what I was offered was a pretty fragile faith. One that didn't give you permission to doubt or question or wrestle or be angry with God, right? As soon as that happened, it's like, oh, stop the show. This is a problem. And as I've grown older, and I like to think I'm wiser than I used to be, that is such a dangerous thing. Because that's a weak God. That's a God that I don't want any part of, to be honest with you. That's a God someone serves, like, man, I honestly, I feel sorry for that person, because the depth and breadth and the intensity of relationships and conversations and ideas and coming into your own in your faith journey, it can't exist. It doesn't develop, right?
Yeah.
And so in some ways I am grateful for that darkness, that journey of just, it sucks so bad, but it let me kind of break free of this mentality that my faith was dependent upon my lack of doubt.
Wow.
And on the other side, I would argue that my faith is dependent upon my ability to doubt and question. And if I don't doubt, I don't question, it's not a faith. I have just taken what I've been spoon-fed, and I do not want anything like that in my life.
Yeah.
That's weak. It's just
That's
weak.
great.
And that's where we get the ideas of, did you pray hard enough? Man, you must have done something wrong. No, that's a scapegoat. I'm sorry. If prayer doesn't lead you to either changing your posture towards someone or action, it's an exercise that you do simply to make yourself feel better about not doing anything else. I believe that wholeheartedly. And this journey with Justin has helped me kind of shift my perspective a lot, and to be okay with my kids doubting, my kids calling BS on things that just don't add up. Like, yeah, okay, let's talk about that. And so I know I'm kind of going on a little bit of a tangent here, but bringing it back around. My faith, as it evolved, gave me that. Justin's journey gave me that. I would say God gave me that. And while I've gone through many periods of doubt and question and wrestling, I am convinced, while every journey I've gone through, I fall less and less in love with the church. I fall more and more in love with Jesus.
Mm.
It's just different, right? And so that, I guess, all that to say, watching Justin do the same thing, because he's doubted and he's wrestled, he's become so angry, and yet he comes out the other side. It's, we're always better for it, right? The fires are what temper us, and we got to be willing to go through those fires.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not, I'm not sure what we can do for anybody else.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
so healthy to walk through those with your kids. I don't know how old your kids
right.
are. Ours are grown, but that's so healthy to walk through those things with your kids and let them work on all the doubts that they have in their faith. You want them to do that at home with you before they're,
Start it there,
in college.
right.
Guide them to,
Yeah.
I think I answered your question, I hope.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
no,
great.
it's good. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of journeys,
Mhm.
we watched the movie, and you
Yeah.
didn't really say in the movie why you decided to do this. It's called the El Camino, and it's through Spain, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Camino, and it is 500 miles. It took you about 35 days. So what possessed y'all to want to do this?
You know what's funny
Right.
is that the movie hits exactly why we did it. It was that simple. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of, I mean, we're kind of going way back here, but around 2012-ish, Patrick and I were we've done a lot of traveling with our wives and kids, and we've done, I was living in San Diego, California at the time. Pat was here in Boise area. And, throughout about, I don't know, maybe 20 years, we were separated physically, but we would see each other at least a few times a year, like coming home or whatever. And we were kind of just looking for an opportunity just to do something just together. Where we were kind of waiting for the right window there was a period of time where Patrick's youngest is adopted. So there's a whole kind of storyline with that. But Olivia came into their family, and which is wonderful after a long wait. And then we finally kind of got to a point where we're like, okay, I think we're looking for a window here to maybe just do something, just two guys, two friends. And we looked at like Oktoberfest or like just doing something fun, like a beach somewhere.
You had a lot of other options.
Oh yeah. And so it was just really kind of a nondescript Saturday morning. I was watching PBS, and Rick Steves is a travel guy on Rick Steves.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, northern Spain and Pamplona, running of the bulls, and Ernest Hemingway. And then this pilgrimage across northern Spain called the Camino de Santiago. And, in America, we really don't have them. We have the Appalachian Trail, their PCT, and some other trails, but not like this. And I was like, I wonder if I could do that in my wheelchair, because I was in a wheelchair at that point. And I was like, And then so just kind of an idea. And then my wife, I asked Kirsten, my wife, and I was like, she said, if you want to go do it, you can like go for it. Like, and she knows that kind of when I get an idea in my brain, that especially if I think it was a solid one at that point, she was like, yeah, I mean, go for it. Like, and then a few weeks later, Patrick was visiting me in California with his family for spring break. And I recorded the episode. I showed it to him, and I was like, so like, what do you think? Like, you want to go across 500 miles of northern Spain with me? And he's like, yeah, I'll push you. That was his like, yeah, I'll push you. Like, that was his response, like just very casually, nonchalant. And we're like, okay. And, we started diving into it a bit more, and, not really knowing what we were getting into, but that was really the impetus of it. Was just an idea of just two knuckleheads doing this thing together. No movie, none of that was even remotely in the spectrum. And at that period of time, I'll try to be very condensed here, but my wife and I had decided to move to Italy for a short period of time. So I was always I was in the middle of the throes of planning that and dealing with that. And then so I just, oh, we'll talk about this when I get back. Um, and while I was in Spain, you know, Patrick had his kind of his window of opportunity, and that kind of really kind of set things in motion, and off we went.
Yeah.
So Patrick, what are you thinking when he gives you this idea?
I mean, there was no other thought then. All right, let's do it. You know, it's just, you know, I mean, I hadn't gotten into the weeds, the details, you know, and I mean, the devil's in the details. You start thinking about how you do something as opposed to why. You're going to talk yourself out of it. And so it was important to him. He was excited. You know, and he's always been one to, ever since being in a wheelchair, you know what, the limitations I have are ones I'm placing on myself. Let me break beyond those. Let me push beyond these limits I think I might have.
Yeah.
And often they require other people to step in into whatever it might be, but this is big, right? This is a big deal. But it sounded exciting. You know, I'm more of a go hiking and be like a kind of a solo experience person, or with a few people, you know, and that's, Justin mentioned the PCT and Appalachian Trail. You know, those are not communal experiences. You know, you do this by yourself. You do this with a small group of people, where a pilgrimage, often you go alone or with a few people, but you wind up in a community. You know, it's just a different kind of thing. And so I would probably have never picked it. You know, that would have been my, oh yeah, let's go do that. But his interest piqued mine. And so we always kind of function like, you know, his I wonders are my I wonders. You know, you ask a question and you pause it to one of your friends or your family, and they make it their own because it's important. That's just how you operate. And so that was it. There was nothing more complicated than that. And people get baffled by it. I mean, they asked the same question you asked earlier about, like, what's the real reason? That was it.
That's it.
That was it.
We're not complicated human beings here.
Yeah. Justin has a vision. Patrick says yes. Like, that's
do it.
And you know what? And if it was reversed, like if Pat said, hey, like, let's do, what do you think about this? I would have said, yeah. Like,
just how we function,
because we've had so many life experiences and things together and journeys together. And I mean, we've traveled as couples to Europe. We've done that. And I mean, so we had history of, you know, of doing things together, small and large. And it was just like, you know, Pat, you know, if it rolled reversed, like, of course I would have done it. Like,
yeah.
Like, because we're like, oh, this would be fun. Like, you know, hard, but fun.
Yeah. So,
well, this does sound like a couple of guys. It's like, we're just hanging out. Hey, this would sound cool. Let's go do it. So I totally understand that.
It's a very grand version of holding my beer, watch this. You know?
Exactly. Yeah,
pretty much.
For sure. I'm like, I don't know if I would grab a girlfriend to go do that. They're like, you want to go to the pool at the Gaylord? Like, we could go lay there for a couple of days. So I appreciate that. Okay. One of the things, Justin, you can tell me if I'm like totally way off base here. I was shocked at how difficult it was to find wheelchair accessible accommodations in Europe. And am I crazy? Do we do a good job in the United States of that? And was that like one of the hardest things? Like, what I want to know what the hardest things you both thought were on this trek. But for me watching, I was like, you've done this all day long thing, and now you have to deal with this.
You've got to figure out how to get to the ring.
What in the world? Like,
yes,
that blew my mind.
There's so many layers to that question.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. I'm kind of rambling, but I was blown away by it.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a great observation because most people don't really pay attention to those kind of details. I mean, just to paint the picture, you know, each day, you answered a couple different layered questions. So big question, United States versus the rest of the world. The United States is far above and beyond when it comes to providing accessibility options for people with disabilities, of different kinds of disabilities, not just wheelchairs. Is there a lot of work to be done still? Yes, there is. Once you leave the United States border, does it become much more difficult? Yes. That doesn't really exist outside the United States. I mean, in some pockets, yes. Certain countries, certain cities will have more accessible options than others. So, but every day on the trail, you are correct. Like, we would have to get up, walk all day, and then we'd have to find how to, uh, you know, where to stay and how to get me in a building or how to get me in a room and navigating all those things and all that. But, you know, it's interesting because it's like for me, I look at it as a challenge. I look at it as a puzzle piece, like a puzzle, like we have to figure out. I mean, there's times where Pat and I were at a bathroom for 20 minutes. Like, okay, you got to get me on this. We'll move you over here. I'll pick you up and move you over here. And then we'll like shift this chair over. I mean, it was just like this, that kind of scenario. And, you're tired. You're trying to, I don't know. I mean, yes, it was daily reoccurrence of trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
That was like probably on a whole. I mean, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong here, but maybe like 2 or 3 places were accessible, like a bathroom. I think at one time I had
with
to
the
borrow
exception of a few
bathroom from
hotels we
somebody.
stayed at. Yeah, there were hotels that were better. I'm thinking like in Astorga, that bathroom was actually great. But they're few and far between, and we're also going day by day, right? So it's not like we have reservations,
Right. Yeah.
You're figuring it out as you go. I will say this about Europe, that it's different pockets of it, because thinking about Spain in particular, that planning ahead, you definitely have more options.
Yeah.
But still, they don't have an American with Disabilities Act. There's not like a baseline bar that they're trying to meet.
Right.
If they're doing it because they've seen a need for it and they made adjustments, but it's not because anybody's requiring them to do anything.
Yeah.
You see it less, but there are certain cities that have taken it. Like you go to Barcelona, it's amazing. Valencia has beaches that are literally, they have sidewalks that are specifically for wheelchairs only. They're marked blue. They have spaces on their beaches that are specifically for families of individuals who are in wheelchairs. So there's certain pockets that will do it well, but you can't bank on that at all.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I mean,
it's
a whole nother piece of the puzzle that,
right.
I'm sure you guys see it in a totally different light.
Because we were sitting there, it's like they have walked all day, and now they've got to figure out how to get in the
And they need an office chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we ruined a lot of office chairs. One of the here's a quick funny story that happened that it didn't make the movie, but it was pretty funny. We were in what's the town of chocolate, Pat?
That was
Astorga.
That was
we're in this bathroom. Yeah, this big shower, and I was like, oh, it's like accessible, but I didn't have a place to sit. There was no like chair. So Pat goes down to the like patio area and gets this like patio chair that's like, how do you describe it? It's like a donut. It's like a big donut.
The ones that they're made of plastic and they mimic a beanbag chair, but they're firm, right?
Yes,
so it looks like a beanbag chair, but it's just kind of a contour of a body.
Yes.
It's one of those. So it's about 3.5, 4 feet across. It's huge. So I get it. I tip it off the side and I'm rolling it to the lobby, into the elevator, take it all the way up, roll it in the bathroom, get Justin on it, turn the shower on, and he's soaking for a while.
I was loving it. So I was just kind of like, Pat's watching TV. I'm just like, oh, this is so great. Cause I hadn't really had a really thorough shower in a few days. So I was like, oh, just kind of like, sitting there. And then I look down and it's like the chair had created a suction cup around the drain. So all the water was not going down the drain. I was like, oh, there's a lot of water in here. And so like, he comes running in, like there's water coming out into
it was coming out of the bathroom and on the carpet.
Oh no!
And so fortunately, we got it early enough. We didn't damage anything permanently, but I had to gather towels, prop him up, so I couldn't get him out. Right, because he's all wet. Prop him up, stuff towels underneath just to get a little bit of a flow for the water to drain. And
my God.
Disaster averted, but man,
it's pretty funny.
Hilarious. I think, Patrick, do you naturally have like this bold personality? I mean, I have a personality like that. I would totally roll something through a lobby.
Oh yeah.
Has this pushed you?
Craps about anything.
I was going to say, does seem like you just have to like, be like, this is what we have to do and we're just going to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, I try not to be ever rude about it, but if someone asked me, actually somebody asked me, I was like, I got, broken Spanish and broken English back and forth that I don't have a chair in the shower. So if you have something smaller, great. If not, I'm using this. I'm like, okay. You know,
It's very direct.
I love
proceed.
that. I love that. I'm also a direct
Yeah.
person.
So did either of you have a moment like in you're in the middle of this, is there a moment like you go, okay, why am I doing this? Was there a hard moment where you're
Do you
like,
ever want to stop?
yeah.
The mud at
No.
the beginning?
The
Oh my
first,
gosh.
was it day one where you went through all the mud? I'm like, oh my gosh.
No, I mean, go ahead,
Go ahead,
Jay.
Pat. Good, good.
Well, as a whole, no, there was never a time we were going to give up. I mean, it was going to come hell or high water. We were going to make it. It might look different. There might be different things we have to do. We might have to, skip sections for whatever reason, which, I mean, we wound up skipping the small section because we had to get Justin's chair welded after the
Yeah.
front wheel broke off, and so I mean, you adjust, you adapt, you make decisions based on necessity, but giving up was not one of the options for a decision. The only time we had a severe low point was actually on day 26, right? Day 26, yeah, day 26.
Yeah.
When we were going up a stretch of hill that was not very big. What happened is that we made a mistake. We slept in. We never slept in. We got up, so we were always on the trail with at least some pilgrims, and we're in this town where the town prior is probably 6 miles away or so. So when we wake up, because we slept in an hour or so, everyone's gone. So we're the only people on the trail, and no one has caught up because they're still, 3-4 miles behind us. And so as we're trucking on this stretch of trail, we hit a hill that's not tall, it's just long, and my body just can't keep going. I'm really starting to feel the effects of it. And so we had considered, maybe in that moment, do we need a cab? The cab is the next town, because you can do that. You can call someone and have them come pick you up. But we stopped. Justin said, hey, let's go down bottom of the hill, rest, and try and figure this out. And so we did. And after, I don't know, it felt like an hour and a half, but it was probably 20 minutes. Still no pilgrims, mind you. He was like, let's give it one more shot. And so I strapped in behind his chair. We get back up the same spot, and it feels like we're in the exact same location. I've been here before, and my body just shuts down, and I can't keep going. So at this point, I got the brakes on his chair squeezed so tight, got my forehead pressed against the back of his handlebars, and I'm like a 45-degree angle to the plane below me just to keep his chair from inching back towards me. And my body's just that shaking after like the worst workout in the world, but I'm going to be there for a while. I've created a bad scenario for my body, and I don't know what we're going to do. And then out of the blue, a pilgrim shows up, and she asked, can I help? And this gal, Victoria, she was originally from Australia, and she had moved to the UK, was doing the Camino. Turns out she works for an organization called Scope. Scope is kind of the UK's equivalent to our MDA, the Muscular Dystrophy Association. So she works with people in wheelchairs every day.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
She shows up, and she jumps in front of the chair with these straps that we have and pulls us the next 10 or 11 miles to the town of
Wow.
Wild. That's the only time that we thought about, man, we might raise the white flag for the day, but never for the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. Well, thank God for
Well,
Victoria.
and it doesn't seem like Victoria was an accident.
No.
I mean, yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. A totally different weird question, maybe. In this movie, there were shells everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You're carrying a shell. There's signs of shell. What is the shell? I don't even know what that is. They never explained it. It's probably something simple.
Yeah. So it has a few different meanings, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong. So historically, we're kind of going way back here, but the I would say an urban legend, but the myth or the story as it goes is that the bones of Saint James, so Jesus's brother, were moved over. This is back in the ninth century, even probably earlier than that. And they had washed up. They were found on the shore of the northwest corner of Spain, so the Galician coastline, and they were covered in scallop shells. Okay, so that's kind of the main symbol. And then over time, it was used as people started making, and those bones were buried at the cathedral, where the cathedral stands now, in Santiago de Compostela, so northwest Spain. And then over time, people started making a pilgrimage to Santiago. And then they started using the shell as a utilitarian tool. So not only a symbol, but also a utilitarian, like, a bowl or a cutting device. But if you actually look at the shell, you flip it over, on the outer side, it has all these grooves that come to a center point. And so there's more than one Camino route. So we took the French way, but there's other ones like Norte, Primitivo, Portuguese, Central Spain. You can even walk it from, Italy or Jerusalem. You can walk it from. I mean, it's like goes way far. And so over time, that shell becomes a symbol of the pilgrimage. That is your kind of your guiding beacon as you're walking. So pilgrims wear the shell as an identifier that they're on the Camino, so people know who they are. And then there is when you're walking along the trail each day, there are you'll see the shell, or you'll see yellow arrows that kind of point the right way, so where you're going. But that's pretty much the meaning of it. I don't know if I could be slightly wrong on some of the facts on that one.
Yeah, and some of this, become commonplace in the mentality around the Camino in regards to scallop shell, is that as you see those grooves, they converge in one location. It's the idea that, like the phrase that people will share, is that all roads lead to Santiago.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that we're all on the same, we're all on different paths, but our end destination is the same.
Okay. So when you start the trail, just kind of like the other trails we were talking about here, like you sign a log or whatever, were you given the shell? Did you sign a log? Did people know where you are on the trail, or how did they know?
Yeah, it depends on where you start. Some places will give it to you when you sign, like in St. John, you register as a pilgrim because they keep track of the people that do the full 500.
Okay, yeah.
And that's the most popular place to start. And that's the most popular route because it has the greatest amount of infrastructure. So you go through the most amount of towns today. So you have access to healthcare and food and clean water, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
On the Norte, it's very sparse, very sparse. Yeah. And so it just depends on where you land. For your starting point, you might be given a shell, you might have to purchase one, you might bring one from home. Yeah. There's just lots of different ways you can come by a scallop shell.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on a whole, just getting slightly technical, is when you walk the pilgrimage, you get what's called your credencial. It's a pilgrim's passport, and that passport is stamped. If you're walking more than 100 kilometers, it's once a day. If you walk less than 100 kilometers on in, because that's the minimum distance you can do to get your Compostela, that's the certificate of completion. So they use the pilgrim's passport as a way of identifying, logging, like Pat said, like when you start, you'll get may or may not get a shell, but you also get a pilgrim's passport, and you stamp every day. And then that you show that at the end, and that's your proof that you
completed it. All right.
Okay, Rebecca, I have an idea.
What?
We should do this.
No.
You're supposed to say, let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
I think that Patrick will go with you.
Yeah. Okay, on this journey for each of you, what did you learn about yourself on the journey? Through because we talked about life journey in general, and just specifically for this Camino, what did you learn about yourself?
How about if I go first, because I'm a little quicker, and then Pat can maybe. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I learned that that we often sell ourselves two major things. Number one is you often sell yourself short, meaning you have an idea or you want to do something, and it may be on a larger scale, like the Camino, like this crazy journey that Pat and I went on in a wheelchair and all the ups and downs with that. You can easily start and go that's too hard. X, Y, Z could happen. Fear sets in, doubt sets in. People start telling you it's a dumb idea, which happened to us, by the way. Why would you do that or whatever? And I remember distinctly rolling into the square on that final scene in the movie. Right as we came in, I was just like, wow, how often do I sell myself short? of things that I think I can do. I just don't do it because of XYZ getting in the way, right?
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is like my faith in humanity was restored, meaning we had so many people step in and help us along the way that, I mean, we literally lost count. Like you can't keep track of all of that. And what I'm not going to get off a tangent here, but basically what I see is that every day we're bombarded by all the bad things that are happening in the world, XYZ and blah, blah, blah. Like just turn on the news for 2 seconds. And but what I've realized is that there are a lot of good people in this world doing good things.
That's right.
And we might come from different backgrounds. Actually, we all come from different backgrounds, and even culturally and socioeconomic, even all the parts of humanity. But when you come together for a common goal of like just even pushing me up a small hill or helping me for a little bit, or conversations being had, you realize that we're a lot more similar than you're led on to believe. And that people are inherently good. Like I think there's bad apples, right? But there's a lot of good people doing good things, and we don't see that very often. And so it's a good reminder for me. So that's what I learned.
Yeah, that's great.
For me, I was when we did the Camino originally, I was in a healthcare role as in administration. I was the director for spine services at an area hospital here in Boise, and this is to no blame to my employer by any means. This was a self-imposed situation here. I'm pretty type A, pretty driven, very my work ethics sometimes can be a disease. And I had taken this role on with the idea of providing for my family, working 60, 70 hours a week, bigger paychecks, the next promotion, really providing well financially. But that caused a lot of problems, as you can imagine. So right before we left, one of my coworkers, her name is Becca, she gave me a little prayer medallion, one of those little, embossed coins that have an angel on it. And she said, I'd be praying for safety for you, right? And so I thanked her, that went in my little pouch on my belt, had it with me every day, kind of thing. But that was rest on the back of my head for a while. This makes sense here in a minute. When you're on the Camino, you go through the Meseta. The Meseta is the desert. Meseta means plateau or mesa, essentially is how it's translated. And there's a large portion of Spain that is covered by this Meseta. And you got to get up the incline to get this flat area, but it is so flat. It's like Kansas, right? Just wheat field after wheat field after wheat field. And some people skip this section. I would argue that this is the most important section in the Camino, because you are forced inward because there's no distractions. I'm pushing Justin. We had what we called headphone days. We needed no help on these days. There's one day we did 25 miles in one day because it's just flat. But when you are alone with your thoughts and alone with yourself, especially for hours and hours on end with literally no distractions. What I mean is that I look to the right and the left, and it is the same wheat. I look at the distance and it is one tree, and that's it. Like there is nothing to occupy your mind. And so you go inward in a way that's really profound. And I came face to face with who I was versus who I wanted to be. And who I was played out. And the only way I can describe it is like thousands of tiny TV screens behind my eyes playing out every single moment I had failed my wife and kids. And it wrecked me. I was a mess. It was an absolute mess. Just started sobbing behind pushing Justin's chair. I'm like, dude, next time we got to get on Wi-Fi. I got to call my family. So we had a little iPad with us. We connect to Wi-Fi. That was how we communicate, And so I get my family on the phone, or on Skype, and it's late in the day for us, it's early morning for them. And my kids were young at the time. And I still remember my wife and kids come in the office where we had the computer, and the kids hop on, say hi to dad. And I apologize to them. And they it's okay, Dad, we love you. I mean, they're so forgiving, and they've forgotten, so many things that I hold so much guilt for. Some things they haven't, but most things they have. And then I get my wife in the room just by herself, and I said to her, I want to apologize for all the times I've broken your heart. And I know there've been many, and that was just a mess. And what she said to me was that if you never broke my heart, how would I learn to love you more?
Wow.
Pretty weighty.
Yeah.
This kind of goes back to our conversation earlier about faith, right? I mean, those broken moments are what galvanize our faith. If we don't let ourselves have those broken moments and move beyond them, there's no strengthening, there's no tempering. And when a marriage can go through hard times and someone has that posture, that stance, it's really hard for it to crumble.
Yeah.
And then when someone is shown a better way to engage, and now you both do that, man, I mean, the intensity of our love and compassion for each other it just evolved. And that was kind of a catalyst for a shift in my mindset. I mentioned that coin earlier. Really, it kind of came to, I was playing things safe. I was doing the safe route then, right? I was putting money in the bank to play it safe. But what my family wanted was more time, more adventure, more stories to share together. And that doesn't come from playing it safe. And so though Becca was praying for my safety, my mentality was, I don't want to be safe anymore. I'm done with this. My life to be full is going to require some risks, and it's risks on all levels. It's what we were doing. I mean, we were already taking a risk, but it kind of opened my eyes to different things. It was the shift in speaking for a while. It was these Caminos, and now there's new risks that I'm taking with my family that aren't related to Justin and I's work. And it's just, but that mentality brought me a whole host of freedoms that I would never have experienced if I hadn't had that mental shift. And so I would say that's the biggest thing.
I think,
and then you left the coin at Cruz de Fierro.
Oh, yes.
That's my Ebenezer stone that people talk about a lot. I didn't bring anything to leave behind. That was not my goal. But when we got there, it was very clear that no, this safety element that I've held on to, my type A control freak, needed to take a backseat.
Yeah. I resonated with your story so much, Patrick. I can be a lot like that as well. But I think that we think that vulnerability is so scary in a friendship, and then also in a marriage, vulnerability can be the scariest thing ever. But once you get past that, there's so much freedom on the other side of that. When you connect on a whole nother level, and you build these deep roots, and that's what makes you unshakable as a friendship and as a married couple.
Absolutely, for sure. Vulnerability is so key.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and honestly, throughout the movie, I could see that happening to you, because at the beginning, Pat, you seemed a little like, I don't really want help. Like at the beginning of the journey. And then by the end, you're like, you had 20 or 30 people helping you at one section. And it's like, you could see you had that, and you could just see that your mind had changed.
You had a freedom mindset, then it seemed like. It was really cool. Really cool. And I too, I loved seeing that community and all the community come around. I loved all of that. It was so great.
One of my favorite scenes, real quick, sorry to interrupt, is one of my favorite scenes, and it happens so fast. There are two. Number one, it's right after Cruz de Fierro. Pat had, we were there, and we were on our descent down, and somebody with us her name is Christy. And she's holding the strap. It happens so fast. She's holding the straps, and it looks like she's doing a Christ pose, walking behind us. And it's the most I think she's just holding the straps just to keep them out of the way. But it's like she just was doing that. And so.
Oh, I remember that. It's on the video, right?
It's in the movie. Yeah. Yes. Right after that, she's holding the strap. It happens so fast. It's like maybe a second or two. The second is exactly what we're talking about here. Is that scene as Osebrero. That's the mountain we're climbing. Very steep, very hard. All these people came in to help us. And there's another split second scene of Patrick walking by himself, no backpack, nothing.
Yeah.
And it happens so fast. It's like, it's for me, it's one of those, I'm glad it was captured. It's like that little moment that Pat and I really knew, like, I was way ahead of him. So like, I didn't even know he even had that was happening, but it's in the movie. It's a great little, like, such a short millisecond scene,
Yeah.
but it says so much.
Yeah.
Um, and if you watch the movie again,
Yeah.
you catch it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Kind of that unpacking and freedom,
Yeah.
like a freedom.
Yeah.
The moment the little moment I always remember in the movie is when Patrick is getting you dressed. He's pulled you up out of the bed, and you're kind of messing with each other, and then you kiss him on the forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like my favorite moment.
Oh, he's crying.
Yeah, it was like that just showed how tight y'all are, like
Mhm.
just how affectionate you are to each other.
Yeah. it's
Because
great.
Or
guys
how
don't normally kiss
or
each
how
other on the
delirious
forehead.
you can be at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
How punchy you could be after walking that far. Yeah.
Yeah.
But surely
Yeah.
you guys have to know that men in general, I think the friendship that you have is unusual, that men typically don't let themselves get this vulnerable with each other and this dependent on each other. I think that you have to realize that, right, guys? Like,
I think men
women,
don't let themselves get that vulnerable in general.
yes,
Yeah, it's true.
yes,
Their
yeah,
own friendship.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
very special and encouraging. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you guys for spending some time with us.
So
It's
amazing.
been delightful and really has, I don't know, just really warmed my heart.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch this movie all over again now, knowing that we've talked to you and you guys are just as amazing in person as the film predicted you would be. And we just thank you for spending time with us.
Oh,
It's been
Thanks for
absolutely.
having us.
Babe, that was a fantastic interview.
Yes, it was. And I'm going to have to admit, to show my vulnerability, I teared up a few times.
Yes, you did,
Yes,
which
I did.
actually isn't that hard for you to do,
Yeah.
to be fair. But I really love what Justin was sharing about community. I think that we are so much more alike than we are different. And it just, especially today, in today's time, it seems like that's so important for us to see the commonalities that we have. I loved how they had on that show how much people push them physically and then also just emotionally help them along too. That community building, I think, was so important.
Yeah, and for me, it was just seeing two men have such a close relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't think we see that enough in our culture and in our world, to see two men that are that vulnerable and that open with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, so you guys need to check out this movie if you have not. It's called I'll Push You. We watched it on Amazon. You can find it on their website. Don't miss it. We hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Hardy Party 5.5, over and out.
We'll see you next time.